I'm Dave Breakenridge, and this is Under the Dome. Amarjeet Sohi made a triumphant return to city politics on Monday with a commanding win in Edmonton's municipal election. The former city councillor and federal cabinet minister defeated another longtime city hall fixture, Councillor Mike Nickel, to take over the mayor's chair. He returns at a time of great upheaval for the city of Edmonton, which is facing economic downturn brought on largely by the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're still reckoning with. Today, in a special one-on-one interview, I chat with the mayor-elect over his priorities for the first 100 days, building a relationship with the provincial government, and working with other municipalities to help in that recovery. So it's a pleasure to welcome to Under the Dome Mayor-elect of Edmonton, Amarjeet Sohi. Mr. Sohi, thanks very much for joining us on Under the Dome.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. Nice to see you again. Unfortunately, not in person, but hopefully once things get better and we are beyond this fourth wave, looking forward to see you in person.
Yeah, same here. Now, I do want to get to some bigger issues, looking ahead a little bit, but you've had a couple of days now to let the victory Monday night sink in. A historic win for you, the first person of color elected mayor of Edmonton. You're leading what is shaping up to be Edmonton's most diverse city council ever. I'm just wondering, now that you've kind of had a couple days to think about the win, what are your thoughts on Monday night and the campaign that led to this point?
I am really excited about the opportunities in front of us. Such a dynamic group of people who got elected Monday night. I think this really speaks well to where Edmontonians want our city to go. We have been through very difficult time over the last 18 months particularly, but the downturn in the economy started before that. But despite that anxiety, despite that hardship that people have faced, Edmontonians did not turn inward, right? They did not turn in a way that they just wanted to focus on themselves. They remained committed to community, and they really remained committed to helping each other and lifting each other. And that's the direction they have set. They want our city to continue to be there for each other, and make sure there's support available for vulnerable Edmontonians, that we continue to progress as a community. And that was so refreshing, and having such a strong mandate from Edmontonians to continue to build a dynamic place is absolutely something I'm very proud of.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned, I believe it was the press conference on Tuesday, was talking about, your first order of business as mayor will be to kind of develop a collaborative relationship with the other members of city council. We have a lot of newcomers coming into city council in Edmonton. Once you've kind of established those relationships, get a sense of where everybody is at, what are your first kind of main pieces as mayor? What will the first 100 days of the Amarjeet Sohi administration look like?
First of all, a relationship building is not a one-time thing, right? It is an ongoing process. And in order to maintain a trusted, open relationship with my council colleagues, I would have to continue to invest time and continue to be there and lead by example. Right? So I think that is important. That's how I have functioned in my previous roles. So over the next few days, I have started meeting with council colleagues already, and will meet with more of them before the inauguration. My goal is to meet with every one of them before the inauguration, which is on Tuesday. And once we are through that, just instill in all of us. I see 13 of us as equals. I see 13 of us committed to building a city, and doing that in a respectful way, doing that in engaging with each other constructively. We will not always agree, absolutely, that we should not always agree, but we will disagree with respect and giving dignity to each other. On 100-day plan, we are putting some ideas together. One of the things we committed to was developing the anti-racism, hate-based violence reduction plan. Then obviously there's steps we're going to take on the downtown revitalization, supporting other business districts, uh, putting together a structure for bringing community leaders together to forge a stronger partnership with the community to improve our relationship with provincial and federal governments. Uh, so those are the things we will do. And economic recovery is absolutely immediate. And COVID, I think one of the things that immediately that we need to tackle is ongoing action that city needs to take to fight the fourth wave and how we can support the province. So when I met with the premier, they did not meet, but when I had a call with the premier, I
Yeah.
offered our city's unconditional support, whatever we can do to fight this fourth wave, whether we need to make facilities available, whether we need to have a pop up vaccination clinics run by cultural communities, by indigenous communities, to make sure that we deal with the hesitation that is sometimes real because of people's past
Mhm.
experiences with government. So whatever we can do, and also requiring our employees to be vaccinated, and having some sort of vaccination proof for those who access city services, right? So I think those are the kind of ideas that we have to work on over the next a few weeks and months.
Where do you see the city's role is with economic recovery and helping Edmonton get back on its feet? Kind of once the hopefully the fourth wave starts to wane and we see vaccine uptake increase, we see cases start to go down, people be more inclined to get out and about. What are kind of the big pieces for economic recovery for you?
I talk about in the campaign, and I will talk more about as I had the chance to have these kind of broader and longer discussions. I see three main but also intersecting roles for mayor's office. One is making sure our corporation, city corporation, is run as efficiently, as effectively, providing quality public services at the most affordable tax rate and user fees, and getting value for money. That's the core responsibility of mayor's office and council to ensure that corporation is run as effectively as possible. The second role of the mayor's office is being a champion to each other, celebrating who we are. We are such a wonderful, phenomenal city to live in. We have our river valley, we have our cultural festivals, multiculturalism, and there's so much innovation happening here. We are not telling our
Yeah.
stories to each other. We are not really communicating and celebrating who we are to each other, right? But also being there when something bad happens, right? For me, mayor's office's role is that be out in the community, be in the trenches. If racism is happening in our city, be out there standing side by side the community and do the same work on the reconciliation and other challenges. So celebrating and also standing up to challenges. So that's the second role. And the third role is the advocacy role.
Hmm.
Mayor's office can the mayor's office's convening power have not been properly utilized and understood. And I have seen other mayors work in a way that they use their convening power to bring community together. So, on the advocacy on economic growth, what I would like to do is bring our regional partners together, bring our business leaders together, and then come up with some ideas that we can talk to province about, we can talk to federal government about. These are the areas we need to grow in. And I am very optimistic about the Edmonton's economic potential despite all the challenges we're facing. We have huge potential in petrochemical sector in the region. We have huge potential in hydrogen. I started doing that work and on the tail end of my natural resources ministry, and Minister Seamus O'Regan continued that
Hmm.
work. So we can build on that. I see huge potential in the pharmaceutical. Canada is dependent on the outside world, and this COVID has really highlighted how dangerous it can be, right? If you're dependent on outside world for vaccines and other equipment, right? And there's so much research going on at the U of A in order to create a vaccine that can be adjusted and adapted based on what kind of viruses that we will hit in the future. So we have a lot of potential in that. When I was a federal minister of natural resources, I funded two projects on geothermal, testing new technologies. Both have been successful. So there's huge potential for geothermal in our region. What we need is more of a coordinated approach, working with Edmonton Global, working with Chamber of Commerce, working with the other partners, and then engaging with the provincial and federal governments. How can we support you and how you can support us to spur economic growth and economic diversification in our region.
Yeah, that dovetails nicely with my next question. You have a term as MP for Edmonton Mill Woods. You have a couple of terms in your past as city councillor for Southeast Edmonton. Are there issues or projects that you saw started that you want to build on, or were there issues that were unresolved in your times at other levels of government that you want to pick up on and move forward with?
Well, there were a number of projects that I was able to secure funding for when I was in Ottawa. Yellowhead, that's underway, expansion of the Yellowhead. 50th Street, 82nd Avenue Revenue Rail Crossing. I want to make sure that project proceeds sooner and we start construction underway. The West LRT funding has been secured from the federal government and the province. We want to make sure that is done because we don't want to lose money from those two orders of government. And I know there was some discussion about canceling that project. Under my leadership, that's not going to be canceled. Another opportunity I see is that the federal government made the public transit funding permanent, right? It will continue forever, right? That's billions of dollars that we can tap into, continue to expand our LRT to the Southwest as well as to Castle Downs, the community that has waited for the LRT for a long time. Another area I see a lot of potential in and which has not been properly utilized is the federal government has created regional development agencies. Our agency was called Western Economic Diversification. Now it's called Prairie Can, right? Through that agency, we can spur quite a bit innovation and economic growth in Edmonton region. I'm going to be talking to my former colleagues in the federal government to see how we can adjust the mandate of that agency to focus more on certain regions within or have a more of a regional approach within the broader regional approach, right? So that's one. I also see a lot of potential in the natural resources area. I talk about hydrogen. Another potential is carbon capture, storage, and utilization. If Canada is serious about reducing emissions, which they are, then we need to invest where the emissions are, and emissions are in our region. And carbon capture storage even though it's very capital intensive, but I think if federal government can create some incentives, and I'm going to be approaching the federal government on that to help make that happen. Then the human capital. One of the biggest strengths for our city is our human capital, the people, investing in people. And that's where housing, homelessness, and addiction policies that have been hurting come in, and how we can tap into federal and provincial support on that.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you mentioned natural resources. You were the federal natural resources minister. And so I know that you already have relationships with the provincial government, although the Kenney government was only in power for a few months before the 2019 election. Through your time as natural resources minister, it wasn't always, it may have been collaborative relationship, but it wasn't always, I guess, a strong relationship due to opposition at the provincial government level around some pieces of federal legislation, the tanker ban, Bill C-69, and those things. I don't want to litigate those bills because that's not your focus going forward as mayor. But how did those kind of contentious pieces of legislation kind of change the relationship between you as a politician and the Alberta government, and how do you work on a collaborative relationship going forward?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I would say two things happens most cases in these kind of situations. One is the public facing political and the showing of the frustration and showing of the
Hmm.
discontent that happens, and there is a good reason for that to happen, right? But then there's the behind the scene work that happens, and the behind the
Yeah.
scene work that happened. I had a very good relationship with Minister Savage. She was the energy. She still is the energy minister, and
Yeah.
Minister Panda, who was the infrastructure minister, and Minister McIver, who was the transportation minister. Um, and we worked really well on the Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion project, even though publicly there was a lot of criticism of the federal government on that file. Sometime, in some cases, deserved criticism, right? Uh, but
Hmm.
behind the scenes, we were working really well, and Premier Jason Kenney and his colleagues knew that I was working my I was working really hard to get that project through the finish line, and we did,
Yeah.
and we did, and also the way we worked together on the orphan oil wells pipeline, project, and the infrastructure project. So there's a realization in the Jason Kenney government that despite our political differences, that I tried to do my best, that I did my best I could under the circumstances to defend the interests of Albertans. And so in
Hmm.
my call with Premier, we talked about that. And we talked about how we can build on that relationship.
What are the key issues for you going forward into your term as mayor, when it comes to relations with the province? Is it the COVID pandemic, and if it is, what do you need from the province in terms of COVID? Is it economic recovery? Is it just kind of the funding arrangement between cities and the province, like municipal sustainability or the property tax split? What are kind of the key issues that you're looking at when dealing with the Kenney government
Yeah.
going
So there are a
forward?
number of things that I talked about. One thing I would like to discuss with Edmonton's community leaders is where are some of the things that we need to focus on. Obviously, we need support from this government tackling social issues. We have a
Yeah.
crisis going on in our community on homelessness, on addictions. Opiate crisis is killing people every day. Every day, Edmontonians are dying on our streets and their homes silently, and that's devastating. And that must end, right? So we need definitely support. We need a stronger partnership with provincial government helping us tackle those. Then the revitalization of downtown and business districts. Our small businesses,
Mhm.
particularly those who depend on people coming into their shops and businesses to do business, have been impacted. And the
Yeah.
impact of COVID has further prolonged in Alberta because of the mismanagement of COVID, the fourth wave, right? So we need support on that. Then the infrastructure funding has been to reduce. That's another issue that we want to talk about. I think there has to be better operational support for municipalities as well. Right, we're struggling on property taxes, on user fees. If there's room for discussion with the province on, they take 30% of the property taxes in
Yeah.
form of education tax, but it doesn't go. Money doesn't go to education; it goes to general revenue. So is there a way for them to actually reduce that amount over time? So those are the conversation we will have. But you will see me, Dave, engaging with province in a very respectful way. Uh, I will not get partisan. I will not get personal. I will focus on issues. I will stand
Mhm.
up for Edmontonians. I will stand up for Edmonton's interests and our community's interests. But I'll do that with the utmost respect and honesty. And I think that's how I have functioned in the past, and that's how I will function in our relationship with province.
Yeah. Now, lastly, I do want to talk about another important relationship for the mayor of Edmonton, and that's in relation to the city of Calgary.
Mhm.
Now, there's a lot of friendly competition between both cities, not just on the football field or the hockey rink, but also in areas around attracting businesses and attracting events to cities. What do you feel is kind of the key piece for that relationship between you and Calgary's mayor-elect Jyoti Gondek going forward when it comes to either working together in certain areas or even that bit of friendly competition to attract businesses and events and economic development to Alberta?
One thing that I really find very interesting and very, say, I'm very pleased about is that there's so many people out there who are so pleased to see me and Jyoti Gondik elected as mayor here in Calgary, and there's so much goodwill out there, right? I think, and over the last last 2 days, Jyoti and I have been already been meeting in media conversations together, not separately. Already
Yeah.
talking to each other
Yeah.
together in the same platform, right? I think that is a very good start of that stronger relationship. And we need to learn from each other. One of the things that we announced during the campaign was the creation of the Edmonton Innovation Fund. Calgary announced such a fund a couple of years ago. They've been very successful in attracting billions of dollars of investment, and we're going to learn from that and create our own fund. I think there's an opportunity to collaborate in our relationship with the provincial government on grant funding and the future of the cities. And I would like to expand that. I would actually would want to explore through AUMA and or through my relationship with mayors throughout this province, building a broader coalition of mid-sized municipalities and two major urban centers and coming up with some joint strategy on what are some of the things that we need, right? Um, and AUMA could be a very good vehicle for us to do that. And then having a concerted, a very coordinated approach to engagement, focusing on 4 or 5, 6 things that we need instead of 20 things, right? And then being and then building on that, strengthening that relationship with the provincial government. And I think I can also be useful because of my relationship with the federal government and how the federal system works, open up opportunities for to have a better relationship with the federal government as well.
Yeah. Well, I know you have a lot of work ahead of you, and I'm sure a busy schedule. Amarjeet Sohi, Mayor-elect of Edmonton, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Dave, anytime.
That's it for another episode of Under the Dome. Don't forget you can find all past episodes at edmontonjournal.com/underthedome, or you can hit that subscribe button on YouTube. I'm Dave Breakenridge. We'll see you next time.